This is Moses Mora for the Tortilla Flats Archives. Today is February 12th, 2011, and we are interviewing Rayleen Salas Aguilar. Part of the team is Punky Palazuelos, who is working the video camera. I want to thank you, Rayleen, for being part of this. You know, our whole mural project was essentially based on interviews that we did with the elders of this community, which dates back to 1994. So we have been interviewing people for about 16, 17 years. Back when we started in 1994, I think the youngest person we interviewed was Simon Camarillo, who was 53 at the time, and now he's getting close to 70. Then the oldest person that we have interviewed is Carlos Valenzuela, and he was 88 at the time. 16 years goes by, and there is another age set. We are trying to interview all of the elders of the community, and we knew we were going to get to the point where we would start interviewing the children of the elders. So, in a sense, you are the first one of the next generation. But we're not quite done with the older generation. We do have a list of people to be interviewed in the near future. I just wanted to give you a little orientation on what we do and to thank you. These interviews will later be transcribed and be documented to go into our files. Somewhere down the line, we're thinking of pulling the stories together in book form for the general public to read. Moses, first question. Who were your parents? Where did they live, and why did they come to Ventura? Rayleen. Well, my parents were Margaret Garcia Salas, and my dad was Raymond Salas. My dad was born in Santa Paula, my mother was born in Ventura, and my father's family moved to Ventura, and that's how my parents met. Moses. What time of work did your father do? Rayleen. My father worked for the cleaners, for Paris Cleaners, and my mother worked for Paris Cleaners. My dad went on to do construction and worked at the base. My mother always worked for the cleaners. She worked for Unique Cleaners on Main Street. Moses. The other cleaners you mentioned, Paris, do you remember the location of that? Rayleen. Yes, it was right across a street from Reardon's. Moses. Oh. That building is still there, isn't it? Rayleen. Yes, now it's a beauty shop. Moses. Oh, okay, all right. Rayleen. Right next to the Elks, the old Elks on Main Street. Right, exactly. When your parents met and married, do you know where they were living at the time? Rayleen. Yes, behind my grandfather on Mita Street. Moses. On Mita Street. Rayleen. My grandfather lived by the salad bowl. Right behind was a little house, and after that was the alley. That ran right by the animal hospital on the other side of Santa Clara, right there. Moses. Is that the house you were born into? Rayleen. Yes, I was born at the hospital, but I lived in that house for 5 years, till I was 5, and then we moved to College Park. Moses. You were rather young, and I wonder if you'd know who of their neighbors were at that given time. Rayleen. Annie and Tony Garcia lived next door to my grandfather. Then later on, Irene and Johnny Rodarte lived in that house. Moses. You mentioned your grandfather. What was his name? Rayleen. Chris Garcia. Moses. Chris Garcia. Rayleen. He was married to Lucy Garcia, but she passed away when she was 40. Moses. So your grandfather was here, so it's not a question of people who came to this area. They were here. Do you know how many generations your family has been here? Rayleen. Well, my grandfather's mother was Ramona Garcia, and she lived on Park Row. James Garcia was her husband. Moses. Yeah, you are rooted in this community. Rayleen. But my parents knew each other. My father really grew up here little because they were like 5 years old and they used to throw rocks at each other. They had known each other for years before they were married, but my mother was previously married. Moses. Punky is joining us at the table too. So, Punky, you are welcome to join in with the question process as well. Okay, before we get away from your grandfather, though, do you know what kind of work he did? Rayleen. Yes, he worked for the gas company. Moses. Gas company, okay. Rayleen. For years. Moses. So, come age 5, you moved away for a while. Rayleen. I moved to College Park. Moses. College Park? Rayleen. By Oxnard, El Rio area. Moses. How many years were you there? Rayleen. Probably till 5th grade. Moses. 5th grade, and then you returned to Ventura. Rayleen. Yes, then I moved to Park Row. Moses. Park Row, that's where I remember you from. Rayleen. No, you remember me from kindergarten. Moses. Kindergarten? Rayleen. I always went to Holy Cross even though I lived somewhere else. Moses. Oh, really? Rayleen. I never went to any other school until 6th grade, but I always went to Holy Cross from 1st grade to 6th grade. Moses. All right. Do you remember who your 1st grade teacher was at Holy Cross? Rayleen. Oh my goodness. Was it Sister Lorenzo? Moses. I'm asking you. This is part of the process. We tap each other's memory. Rayleen. I'm thinking it was Sister Lorenzo, but I know my 2nd grade teacher was Mrs. Chase. Moses. Who was your kindergarten teacher? Rayleen. Mrs. Fisher. Moses. You were always there. I slept the whole time awake. I don't remember. Rayleen. Mrs. Fisher was our kindergarten teacher. Moses. I think I slept through 8 years of Catholic school too. I just remember names like that. Why don't you tell us who your playmates were growing up? Rayleen. I used to run around and play with Rita Rodarte a lot. Moses. Where did she live? Oh, she lived next door. Rayleen. Actually, she did move down next to where my grandfather lived, and next door to that was Casa Martinez restaurant. Moses. Exactly where was Casa Martinez? Rayleen. Okay. It was my grandfather's house. It was the house that Rita lived in, the parking lot for Casa Martinez, and then Casa Martinez. Then on the corner was Robella and Della? Punky. So we are talking about Moses. Ventura Avenue? No, on Mita Street. Punky. Yeah, we're talking about Mita Street at the time and the corner of Ventura Avenue. Moses. The corner of Ventura Avenue? Rayleen. Yeah, right there was a corner, and then those houses where the Romeros lived, then Della and Robello. Then right around the corner was Casa Martinez facing Mita Street, and then it was the parking lot, Rita's house, my grandfather's house. Then it made the turn. Punky. Salad bowl turn. Moses. I just only have vague memories about that. But did we talk about maybe interviewing someone from the Martinez family? Punky. No, I don't. Rayleen. My brother used to work there at Casa Martinez. Moses. Tell us about your brothers and sisters, whatever you have in terms of siblings. Rayleen. I have a brother that's 67. His name is Mike Diaz, and I have a sister who's 70, and her name is Virginia Diaz. My mother was previously married to Mike Diaz. I remember, as a child, always going to the Tortilla Flats because that's where the Diaz family lived. We would go pick up my sister to stay with us every week and all summer because she was living with her grandma. Her grandfather was Pete, and her grandmother was Rosalinda Diaz. Moses. So you went to Palm Street Kindergarten, and then you went to Holy Cross. Do you remember some of our classmates there? Rayleen. Sarah Stock. Moses. Sarah Stock. Rayleen. Remember? She lived down by Tortilla Flats, all the way down in the trailer park. Moses. I didn't know that. Is she around anymore? Rayleen. I haven't ran into her, but Sarah Stock, I remember, lived down there, and there was a grocery store, And then there was a trailer park right behind it. And Pam Secor, Moses. Pam Secor, yes. Rayleen. And Clevenger, Eddie Clevenger, Moses, yeah. Rayleen. Fred Barta, Moses, right. We all went to school with Jean Semescua. They were all classmates at Holy Cross. Moses. You went to Holy Cross until grade, Rayleen, 6th. Moses. Till grade 6, and then what happened? Rayleen. I went to De Anza. Moses. De Anza, grade 7. Rayleen. 7th, 8th, and 9th. Rayleen. At De Anza. Moses. Who were some of your classmates and friends during that time period? Rayleen. Sandra Soto, Nadine Austin, Patsy Enriquez, Rita Rodarte, and Lorraine Rodarte. Moses. You probably hadn't started working or earning any kind of extra money for yourself unless you babysat by then, but your work life probably wouldn't have started till later. Rayleen. My work life. I got a job when I was 15. I went to work at the Palm restaurant for 2 years. Moses. The Palm, here on the avenue. Rayleen. On the avenue. Moses. Gee, I wish we had a photograph of that. You know we were lacking some photographs. We don't have an outside picture of the Green Wheel Ballroom, and we don't have a picture of the Palm. That would be great if we had that. But I didn't know you worked there. The Palm, they had a very limited menu, didn't they? Wasn't it just like hamburgers, hot dogs, malts, and sodas? Rayleen. Corn burritos. Moses. They sold corn burritos? Rayleen. We always rolled the corn burritos and put them in boxes. Big boxes. And we always rolled them. There was one person who would come to work, and that was their job, to roll all those corn burritos, to have them ready when we needed them, because we always sold them really fast. Moses. What year do you think that was? Rayleen. That was in 65 when I worked there. Moses. You know, corn burritos seems to be a Ventura thing. People in other towns, they don't know what corn burritos are. They can't even picture them. They picture corn inside a burrito. But people who move away, they always say that when they come back to town, gotta go get me some corn burritos. I don't remember them at the Palm. I think I got my first corn burritos at Ventura High School across the street. Rayleen. Oh, at Foster Freeze. Moses. At Foster Freeze. Yeah, I'm still hooked. I'm still hooked for corn burritos. Not a week goes by. Rayleen. Hi-Ho used to have some good corn burritos. Punky. I remember them at the Palm. Moses. You remember? Punky. Yeah, I remember. Moses. Well, today the best are at Gutierrez, at my opinion. Best price and best corn burritos. There's some in Oxnard, but they cost too much over there. But they were 10 cents back in those days. Wow, you worked at the Palm. So, 1965. Where did you go to high school? Rayleen. Ventura High School. Moses. Ventura High School for 3 years? Rayleen. Yes. Moses. 10th, 11th, and 12th? So you were probably working. Rayleen. I was working then. Moses. While you were going to school at Ventura High? Rayleen. Yes. Moses. Where were the hangouts? Where were the destinations? Where would you go? Rayleen. Well, I was fortunate. My dad was really good with me. When I was in the 5th grade, I used to go to the West Park teen dances with your sister Jeannie. They were on Friday nights, and Mrs. Dearborn and Mrs. McCauley used to run them. They were from 6 to 10, and that was the hangout every other Friday night, and that's where I was in 5th grade. Then, when I got older, I went to the roller gardens on Saturday night. My mother would take a bunch of us girls and pick us up and bring us home. We would go to the movies, the Ventura Theater, or the Mayfair on Friday nights, or Saturday afternoons, and sometimes Sundays. Moses. You mentioned the roller gardens. That was out at the Wagon Wheel Junction. Rayleen. Yes. Moses. They had live teenage bands playing. Do you remember any of the live acts you saw? Rayleen. Cannibal and the Headhunters, the Beach Boys, Sonny and Cher. It was always a good place to go. Moses. Were you there the night that Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs played there? Rayleen. Yes, yes. Punky. Jan and Dean. Moses. How about the night Dee Dee Sharp was there? Rayleen. Probably, because I went there all the time. And when Cannibal and the Headhunters came, that usually meant the Midnighters were there with them. Maybe the Premiers, or the Blendells, or the Salas brothers, who eventually evolved into Tieta. Is there a family connection? Rayleen. No, my cousin is Jerry Salas, but he's the lead singer for El Chicano. Moses. For El Chicano, okay. Jerry Salas. And he's still with the group, right? Rayleen. Yes, he is. He's been with them a long time. Moses. Yeah, he was with them. There was an original group, and then there was the group that had all the hit records like Tell Her She's Lovely. Rayleen. He made that song. Moses. Yeah, he was the lead vocalist at the time. Did he write that song? Rayleen. Yes, he did. Moses. Boy, he must have gotten some good royalties unless he signed his rights away. Jerry. Was he from around here? Rayleen. No, they were from Glendale. Moses. So you had family in the Los Angeles area? Rayleen. Yes, his dad and my dad were brothers. Moses. And how many brothers and sisters did your father have? Rayleen. My dad had one sister and two brothers. Moses. And where did they live? Rayleen. My Uncle Bill Salas, he lived in the LA area, Glendale, and my Uncle Eddie lived up north in Pismo. Moses. And your aunts? Rayleen. My aunt lived in Oxnard. She's the only one that's still alive. She's 90. Moses. So, any cousins you have from them, you knew them and saw them growing up? Rayleen. Oh, yeah, I was always very close to my cousins. In fact, my Uncle Eddie and my Auntie Emma Salas had a restaurant on Main Street. And they lived on top of the restaurant, which is right where the old Mission gift shop is on Main Street. Moses. Yes. Rayleen. There was a restaurant there years ago, across the street from the toy store on Main Street. And upstairs they lived. That was their residence. But they had that restaurant down below. Moses. Do you remember the name of the restaurant? Rayleen. No, I don't. Moses. Does anyone here remember the name of the restaurant? Mary Diaz in the audience states. I don't remember the name, but that's where Millie, before your Aunt Rayleen's, and then there was Heine's Pool Hall right next door. Moses. Okay, so maybe I think next door to Heine's today, which is part of the Goodwill thrift store there, is one of their auxiliary rooms. And I think there's a parking lot, so maybe that building is gone now? Or is that building still there? Barney Quiata in the audience states. I think it's still there. Moses. The Heine's building is still there, but is the building where the restaurant was, is that gone? Rayleen. I think it's still there because you know what? I park in the back of Holy Cross School to pick up my granddaughter, and there's a place that has an entrance to it upstairs. I'm thinking that's where they lived, upstairs. So I'm thinking that part is still there. Mary. Because we used to go there. It's just that the front has been changed. Moses. So are we talking 1950s or 1960s with this when your family was involved with it? Rayleen. Oh, probably 1950s. Moses. In the 1950s. Rayleen. Because I was still at Holy Cross. I was little. I was probably in about the 3rd or 4th grade. But I remember going there and eating dinner there on Fridays and then going across the street to the toy store. Moses. I'm trying to think then, how many actual Mexican restaurants were there around the area there? The Martinez place and then your family place? Rayleen. My family's place served everything. Moses. Oh, it wasn't necessarily a Mexican restaurant? Rayleen. It wasn't really Mexican. It was just like everything. Moses. Okay. Who from your family worked there? Rayleen. Well, my Uncle Eddie owned it. Moses. He owned it. Raylene, him and his wife, they had that restaurant. Moses, all right, beautiful. Okay, so you had the job at the Palm, and what was the next job that you had after that? Raylene, that was my only job. Moses, your only job. Raylene, my only job, and then after that, I graduated from high school and I went to beauty school and decided not to do that. And then I got married and I didn't go to work until my daughter was going to kindergarten. Moses, before we get into her married life, can you think of any teenage stories? How about the fair? Was the fair a big part of your life? The parade and the fair and stuff like that? Raylene, oh, yes, it was. I have gone to the fair every year except for 1 year. Moses, oh, really? Raylene, every year but 1 year. I missed it. And it's still a big part of my life. I go to the fair about 4 or 5 times during the time that it's here. Moses, were you ever in the parade? Raylene, no, I wasn't. I just like to go watch the parade. I just remember the parade when it used to come all the way down Main Street and turn and go right into the fair. Then they changed the streets. Then they changed it to go to the other end of town. But I remember when it used to go right through Seaside Park and go right down into the fair. Moses, mentioning Seaside Park, did you play around there too? Raylene, I did. I used to go roller skating there all the time. I'd always roller skate down Seaside Park and down on Mita Street. My friend Rita and I used to make little pot holders out of a loom, and then we'd get on our skates and we'd go sell them, 2 for $1, all the way up Mita Street and Santa Clara Street, and people would buy them. Punky, a little entrepreneur. Moses, yeah, okay. Did you ever have a babysitting career? Raylene, no, I didn't. I never really did. I was too busy looking for a dance or a party to dance at. Moses, you mentioned Sandra Soto. Where was she living when you were friends with her? Raylene, she was living on Barnett Street in the projects. Moses, in the projects over there, so you knew the project kids? Raylene, yes. That's where we came out of. When we moved off Front Street, we landed on Riverside Drive over in the projects. Raylene, I always went to your house. Moses, yeah. 1120 Riverside Drive. A couple of years ago, I was driving by, or maybe I was on my bicycle, and they were in between tenants. The doors were open, and they were just painting in there. And I just walked in for the old memories of the place. There were just boxes. They were just like nothing. But that particular one was a 3-bedroom. Raylene, I remember the house. Moses, yeah, it was different then. They became the new projects where Joyce Savala ended up with those 2-story. That was an addition. That area used to be lemon orchards, which separated essentially the other side of Riverside Drive and the lumber company over there. What was the name of that lumber company? Peoples. Was that it? Peoples Lumber Company, then Sheridan Way School, and then West Park. Raylene, that's where I went, to Sheridan Way. And that's where I work. Moses, you work there now? Raylene, I've been there 30 years. Moses, okay. Do you have any Halloween stories? Like, what did you go out as, and where did you go? Raylene, well, when I was little, my dad used to take me to Oxnard all the time. I remember one time I was a cat and I got my tail stuck in the door where the lady had closed it. Moses, I want to try and dwell a little more on your youthful years before we get into your adult years. Raylene, I remember my parents used to take us to the beach all the time, and they would always barbecue hot dogs. We always had a really good time. Their friends at the time were Mac and Clara. They were a couple from Oxnard. But my dad would always take us somewhere, and he'd always have things for us to do. He wasn't one for keeping us at home all the time. Punky, did you go camping? Raylene, all the time. Well, where did you go? That's from Punky. Raylene, we go to June Lake a lot. About every year we go to June Lake. We'd always pack up and take my sister, and he'd always include her in everything, and my brother. We would always go on a 2-week vacation when I was little. Punky. I think I'm picking up the differences in the generations. This generation, or the first generation that we are interviewing, their camping or outings were as far as Foster Park. Rayleen. Oh, we used to go out, too. What's that one past Foster Park? Camp Comfort, says Moses. Rayleen. No, further out. Wheeler's Gorge. We used to go camping at Wheeler's Gorge. A lot. But my dad would always make a big vacation out of it. We would always just go off, just us, my mom and dad, my brother and sister. We would always just go off as a family and go camping. Punky. Now, do you think that was just the fortune of your family that they were able to do that? Do you think the rest of the kids your age that they were doing that type of stuff? I don't remember any of my friends going off on big vacations like that. But I remember my dad worked 2 jobs. He worked day and night pressing. He would work a couple of nights a week in Oxnard pressing. And I know he would always say, "That's our vacation money." And then he would always take us on vacation. I remember going up to Wheeler's Gorge and running into other kids there that we went to school with that were camping up there at the same time. Or my cousins would come from LA and meet us there. But my dad was very family-oriented, and we always did a lot of things with his brother and the kids. Barbecues, my grandparents, because the only grandmother I had was on my dad's side. Moses. Did your family ever just go on weekends to Foster Park and camp there? Rayleen. Oh yeah, all the time. I remember eating in the car on Easter Sunday because we'd all go for a barbecue at Foster Park, and then it started raining. We would have to end up eating our barbecue in the car. Moses. Did other families merge with your family to do that, or was it just your family? Rayleen. No, a lot of families. Moses. A lot of families. Rayleen. A lot of families would come from Ventura. Then you would always run into other kids. Families were up there barbecuing, too, from the avenue. So you would always see someone you knew up there at Foster Park. Foster Park was always crowded. I miss Foster Park, you know. Moses. It's still there. Rayleen. I know, but it's like all kind of closed up. It's not like it used to be. Moses. No, it's not. Nothing like. Rayleen. Nothing is like how it used to be. You know, it's not. It's not. It's just gone. Everything is gone. Moses. Times change. Punky. Speaking of it's not like it used to be, can you just visualize what Main Street looked like, say, from Ventura Avenue all the way up? Rayleen. Oh, yeah. There was Mechanica Motors there. There was National Market. There was Pirano's. And then there was See's Candy on the next corner, and Woolworths and Penny's. J.C. Penney was there where they have that thrift store now. Montgomery Ward was further up there on the other side. A lot of those stores. Carl's shoe store, and then they had that thrifty shoe store across the street where, was it Tommy Marquez used to work there at that store? Punky. I think Carl's was on the corner of Oak and Main. Rayleen. It was. Then right across the street was Woolworths, and then you'd go in there and eat your lunch. Punky. They had the fountain bar, the soda bar. Rayleen. Yes. I remember when I was a child going down by the tortilla flats by Seaside Park, and that's where the Perez lived, Artie Perez's parents. They lived down there. Mona Garcia was my babysitter, and she'd take me back down there, and we'd all go down and clean house down there for some people. And I remember a couple that was black that lived down there, Remy and Billy. Do you remember them? Moses. The McDonald's? Rayleen. They were a black couple that lived right by there. Moses. That was Ramey McDonald. Rayleen. Yes. We used to go to their house all the time. My parents used to take me down there, to their house. But I remember the Perez. Do you remember the Perez? Moses. You know, I don't. Mary Diaz in the audience stated, Chapo. Rayleen. Chapo and Vera. That's who it was. Chapo and Vera. They lived down there. I remember when they lived down there, I used to go with Mona Garcia down there because she was my sitter. Moses. Did you ever go to, like, the Hobo Jungle? Rayleen. No, I never did. Moses. No. Rayleen. But, talking about the fair, Mona used to take me to the fair all the time when I was little. She lived there on Figueroa Street in that 2-story apartment building, and down below lived Joe De La Torre, Virginia and Linda, with their mother, Dolores, and then the Flores lived there, Bill Flores and Pam. Mary Diaz. It was, Rayleen. Pam and her husband, Mary Diaz. Pam and Tony Flores' brother? Rayleen. Johnny. Johnny and Pam lived in that apartment right there, and right next door, Sylvia Gomez lived with her brother Raymond and her mother. And that was when she got hit by that car on Mita Street. Do you remember? Moses. I remember in high school, or maybe even in junior high, that Sylvia had a scar along or around her knees. Rayleen. Because she was real little. I was little. I was probably, it was before I was 5 years old, because Mona only took care of me until I was like 5. And then her husband had been away and he came back, Max, so she had to find another sitter for me. So her sister Margaret used to take care of me. Margaret lived right there on, before you turn on Poli, like this, she's showing with her hands, the bend. That's where the mother lived, and Margaret started taking care of me. She'd walk me down the stairs and take me to Palm Street Kindergarten. So it was before that. About when I was 4, that Sylvia got hit by that car right there on Mita Street. Moses. Wow. Do you know whatever happened to Sylvia? Rayleen. She died. Moses. She did. Rayleen. She went on a date in the snow in Alaska, and she wasn't happy, and they left her on the side of the road, and she froze to death. Moses. Really? Rayleen. Yes. Punky. How tragic. Moses. I seem to have remembered that she moved to Los Angeles. Is my memory wrong with that? Rayleen. She moved to Alaska because her brother was living in Alaska, and she had a child from Larry Berrios. So her mother and her moved to Alaska. Moses. So she did die young. Rayleen. She did die young. She was probably in her 30s. Moses. For some reason, the last I had heard or remembered, she went to Los Angeles. My information is not right, obviously. Well, how about this place over there at the fairgrounds called Teen Time? Do you remember that? Rayleen. Oh, I remember Teen Time. The dance is there. Moses. The dance is there, yeah. Then for a little while, they even had them filmed. I guess it might be the local TV station. I don't know what TV station they used to have. I think the host name was Lou Stumple, and it was like the format very much like American Bandstand. You know, one of the favorite teen dance programs. Rayleen. Do you remember when Pacific Bandstand came down from Santa Barbara? I was in De Anza then. We'd jump on the bus and we'd come down because right there at the fairgrounds, Pacific Bandstand would come down from Santa Barbara and they would have the dance there and they would film it. Moses. Right. That's what I'm talking about. But it was at the Teen Time building. Rayleen. No, I remember the Teen Time. It was like right on the side because Lorraine rented it for her birthday party one time. Moses. Okay. I guess that's where Lou Stumple comes in. He was like the host of the show, but you were too young to be on that show? Rayleen. No, I went on it. Yeah, you went on it? Did you do the Watusi or the Peppermint Twist? Rayleen. We did all those dances. But I just remember jumping on the bus, catching the first bus out of school, and coming down there. He would come once a week, I think, and do a show down here. Moses. We talked earlier about Main Street. You tend to talk about the south side of the street. The north side of the street, remember, I was going to mention 2 places. There was the dollar store, or maybe that came later. Remember the dollar store right across the street from Woolworth? That would be right on the same side of the street. And then Tom McAn's shoe store. Rayleen. I remember Tom McAn's over there next to Arden's where Ginny used to work down at the other end. Moses. I worked there too. Rayleen. Oh, did you? Moses. Yeah, I swept up. Punky. Was Arden's on Main Street? Rayleen. Arden's was right there. Moses. Borchert and Thompson, where Vaughn's is today. Punky. Oh, you're talking way up there. Moses. Yeah. Rayleen. Arden's was there. Punky. That's a whole different community. Moses. Right. Rayleen. And then there was the Top Hat. Moses. I was thinking of McMahon's furniture store. Rayleen. Oh, yeah. You know what? When I was little, I got a phone call. I won a hula hoop from there. Moses. You won what? Rayleen. A hula hoop. Moses. A hula hoop. Rayleen. A hula hoop. I did. I went one day, and I was walking home from school, and I went and put my name on some raffle thing, and I'll never forget. They called me, and I won a red hula hoop. Moses. Really? Punky. Hula hoops were very popular for us at our age back then. Rayleen. They were. Moses. Well, we're looking for talent for our next reunion. We were drawing blanks. What can we have? Punky. A hula hoop contest. Rayleen. And you know they still have them. They still have them. Moses. I remember at McMahon's for some kind of promotional thing that one day, maybe it was a weekend, I don't know, they closed off the street, or they had a stage out in front, and they had the Collins kids there. Remember Larry and Lori Collins, who played kind of rockabilly music? It was one of their promotions downtown. I don't remember if it was a weekend. I just remember standing at the side of the stage and seeing kids like my age there. Rayleen. Performing. Moses. Yeah, performing. Okay, so you graduated from Ventura High School. Rayleen. Yes, 1967. Moses. In 1967. Tell us about your life around that time. Rayleen. I went to beauty school. Moses. And where was that? Rayleen. Ventura Beauty School. I started out in Oxnard, and then came back to Ventura to do beauty school. Then I got married and decided to stay at home. I have 2 daughters, and I decided to go to work when my last daughter went to school. Punky. Just for historical purposes, the beauty school that she attended was, I believe, on the corner of Main and Rayleen Pacific. Punky. Pacific. That used to be a beauty school. I don't know if you remember. Moses. I think I do. Rayleen. It was called Ventura Beauty School. Moses. Right. And wasn't there also a shoe repair place across the street? Punky. It's still there. Rayleen. It was called... I remember Juan's Shoe Repair down on Main Street. Moses. Juan Macias. Rayleen. Way down there. Punky. We all took our shoes to Juan. Rayleen. Yeah. Moses. Juan Macias, right. Didn't he have a son who went to school with us? Rayleen. He did. Moses. Was his name also Juan? Rayleen. I want to say that it was. Punky. Now, his shoe repair is where that leather store is currently, correct? Rayleen. Yes. Moses. So, you graduated in 1967, the Summer of Love, and the Vietnam War. Would the Vietnam War affect you in any way? Any brothers, cousins, friends that you knew? Rayleen. Friends. Moses. Friends went to Vietnam, and you were married shortly after that. Rayleen. I got married in 1968. Moses. Tell us about your husband. Rayleen. I've been married almost 43 years. My husband works at the base. His name is Esau Aguilar. He was born and raised in Santa Paula and moved to Ventura and started high school here. Moses. Where did you meet him? Rayleen. Through friends. Moses. Yeah. Is he older than you? Rayleen. 5 years older than me. Moses. Okay, so you guys weren't classmates at the time. Rayleen. Oh no, I was doing parties at grammar school and he was already in the service. I was doing the junior high parties, and he was in the service. Moses. So he was in the Vietnam era. Rayleen. Yes, he was. Moses. Did he go to Vietnam? Rayleen. Yes, he did. Moses. Okay. Punky. What branch of the military? Rayleen. Army. He was in the Army. Moses. Do you know where he was stationed? Rayleen. He was stationed in South Korea. Then he went to Vietnam. Moses. So you say you worked for 30 years at one job, and that was at Sheridan Way? Rayleen. Yes, and I'm still working at Sheridan Way School. Moses. That's the job you were talking about? Rayleen. Yes. Moses. What do you do there? Rayleen. I work with the kindergartners and first graders. Moses. They have a kindergarten at Sheridan Way now? Rayleen. Yes. Did they always? Rayleen. It's been quite a while. Mary Diaz in the audience. It's been there for many years. Punky. Was it there 30 years ago? Rayleen. Yes, it was, because I've been there 30 years. Moses. Okay. Talking about that whole area too, Sheridan Way, there's a church, or at least a church building right across the street. Rayleen. Yes. Moses. I've never known it to be active. Rayleen. It's not. Mary Diaz in the audience. At times it was active for a few weeks or a few months, and then they're gone. Rayleen. It's boarded up now. Moses. Even back when we were young, maybe I didn't go that way, but I think from the projects to get to West Park or to the police boys, we would just walk down the railroad tracks. Rayleen. Oh, did you? Moses. Yeah, we probably wouldn't have walked down, or maybe we would have walked down Olive, but I always see that building and I always wonder about it. Rayleen. Yeah, but right now it's boarded up. Moses. So you've enjoyed your work for 30 years. You've stayed there, huh? Rayleen. Oh, I enjoy it. Moses. And your husband Esau? Rayleen. He works at the base. Moses. At the base. He is still working at the base? Rayleen. Yes. Moses. And what kind of work is that, do you know? Rayleen. He works on the boats. He goes on the ops. They go out and they try to shoot things out, and then he has to repair the boats that they shoot at. Moses. Okay. Rayleen. It's practicing. Moses. It's practicing. You mean they'll have a boat out there like it's a target? Rayleen. Yes. He works for surface targets, and that's what they call it. Ops. They go out on an op. They shoot at these boats. What it is like they're preparing them in the case we're attacked or something, and then they teach them how to do different things, and then he repairs all the mess of the boats that they have shot at. Moses. Which I would imagine would be steel that got hit by artillery rounds or something? Rayleen. Yes. A lot of it is wood stuff too, and he does woodwork on the boats. He repairs them. Moses. Wow. Rayleen. Does it sound like fun? Moses. I don't know. I worked in a factory for 30 years, and does that sound like fun? Rayleen. Well, let's put it this way. He's 66, and he says he likes his job, and he isn't going to retire yet. Moses. Well, then that's a good job. Rayleen. He's happy. Moses. It's not stressing him out. Rayleen. No. Moses. My job didn't either, and I wouldn't have been forced into early retirement if they had not closed the place down. Rayleen. Yeah. Moses. But I had a no-stress job too. Yeah, that's a good job. A job you can enjoy. Rayleen. He has a 3-day weekend every other weekend, so what can you say? Moses. Yeah, that's good. And so you started a family and you have 2 daughters. Rayleen. I have 2 daughters. Moses. And they are probably grown up now? Rayleen. One is 42 and one is 39. Moses. You want to tell us a little bit about them? Rayleen. My oldest daughter works for the county for criminal mental health, and my youngest daughter is going to school for front and back office medical at the technology place over there by Valentine Road. I have 4 grandchildren. They are 22, 18, 16, and 9. Moses. Your oldest daughter, her job, you said criminal? Rayleen. Mental health. Moses. Mental health. Is this like a therapy role? Rayleen, she works in an office and she has 9 people under her. They get clients that have been in trouble with the law and that are mentally disabled. They come in and see their therapist and get their medication. Moses, are your daughters married? Rayleen, yes, one of them is. Moses, so they are here and you get to see them and enjoy your family. Rayleen, oh yes, I see them all the time. Moses, and you have kept in contact with your childhood friends the best you could? Rayleen, yes, I have. I keep in touch with Punky all the time. I keep in touch with Gloria Pina all the time. She's been my friend since first grade. Rita Rodarte, she's been my friend since we were born. Kathy Quijada, she's my friend ever since we were little. I keep in touch with a lot of my friends. Punky, you have been very involved with the high school reunions. Rayleen, oh yes. My high school reunion friends, I have dinner with them every 6 weeks. And we have been out of school for almost 45 years, so I have a lot of friends that I keep in touch with. Moses, good. Sometimes when we interview women, we get around cooking and recipes. Do you have anything you want to comment on? Rayleen, well, I'm not a baker. I do cook for my family, but recipes, no. Punky, can you remember some of the things that your mother prepared when you were little? Rayleen, oh, my mom always made us empanadas, and she would make them with fresh fruit or with beans. My dad would always make us, I'll never forget, my dad had this meat grinder, and he would make us sandwiches and put them in the freezer. What it was, we lived in College Park, and we had to come real early in the morning to get to Holy Cross. Then as I got older, we would walk from Paris Cleaners to Holy Cross and then walk back after school and wait for my parents. They got off at 4, and then we would go back to College Park in Oxnard. But yeah, my dad would always have our lunches ready. He would make them ahead of time and put them in the freezer, and they were good. He would make us chicken sandwiches and put everything in them, and then he would cut them up for us. Punky, you actually had a refrigerator? Rayleen, we had a freezer. Punky, a freezer. Rayleen, in our garage. I'll never forget that because I always used to skate in there when it would rain. I was always a skater, and I would skate in the garage. But my dad always had us prepared, and my mom always had us prepared, and we would come here. Moses, did you skate on the street, or did you ever go to the roller gardens to skate? Rayleen, all the time. Moses, to skate. Rayleen, to skate. And then there was another place to skate over there by the Foster Freeze. There was a skating place or something, and we'd skate there. But you know what? Most of my skating, I can say, was done on Main Street and Seaside Park when I was little. I was always out there on my skates. We'd skate down Mita Street all the way up and come down Santa Clara and then go down to the seaside. Moses, getting back to that question about cooking, I just want to say, and I don't intend to be any kind of a sexist sort of questioning, but you are a woman, and I'm going to ask you about cooking. I know in our family the men are the better cooks than the women. I think other families are like that. Rayleen, no, I do cook. I do know how to cook, and I do cook well, but I don't have any special recipes that I cook. Punky, well, back in the day, when people had to cook with what was available, a lot of people, historically, had their own gardens, or they would share whatever was in their garden. Rayleen, I remember my mother always worked. She would always prepare a good meal for us, but I know she had to work, so dinner was dinner. I remember we always used to stop at Padre Seafood and get fish. Do you remember Padre Seafood? Moses, where was that located? It was on the corner of Hearst and Mita. Rayleen says that. Moses, oh, I'm remembering now. Rayleen, do you remember Padre Seafood? We would always used to stop there for fish. Moses, didn't Leonora live there on Hearst? Rayleen, yes, she did. Sylvia lived right next door to her. Moses, that's where I remember Sylvia from, living there. I remember when the album The Temptations Sing Smokey came out, and I got it, and I happened to be down there, and Sylvia actually took the album away from me. So those were my memories of Sylvia at the time. Padre Seafood, huh? Within my own family, my mother could cook, God rest her soul. She just couldn't quite coordinate the meals. Like one day we would have spaghetti and tortillas, and then maybe the next day we would have Mexican food and bread. You know what I mean? But my father was really the connoisseur cook. Rayleen, I remember your father, Fano. Yeah, yeah. Rayleen, my dad used to. Do you remember when my dad used to work for the cleaners and he delivered your clothes? Moses, really? Rayleen, yes. My dad used to go to your house and pick up the cleaning, take it to the cleaners, and then when it was finished, he would bring it to the house and deliver it to your house on Riverside. Moses, wow. That must have been my parents' business because I don't remember. Rayleen, Jenny remembers. Moses, Jenny remembers. I remember there was a cleaners right here on the avenue. Wasn't it Carmona's? Barney Quijada in the audience. Cardona's. Moses, Cardona's. In fact, the next block over, I think it was Cardona's. So you grew up right here in this neighborhood, this avenue neighborhood too, and you've seen a lot of changes over the years. Rayleen, oh yeah. Moses, and you still spend time out here? Well, you work out here. Rayleen, I do, and I live off of Apache, off the hill. Moses, well, you stayed well-rooted then here in the neighborhood. How about any of the old nuns? Do you ever know anything about them? Rayleen, no, I never see any of the old nuns. Moses, I guess the ones who taught us are retired. Rayleen, oh, I do know Sister Lorenzo. No, Sister Wilhelmina. Do you know Sister Wilhelmina? Moses, yeah. Rayleen, okay, well, she's not a nun anymore. She moved to Texas. She married. Her husband passed away. And she's a very good friend of my cousin, Jerry Marquez. And Jerry Marquez is Barbara's brother. Moses, was it Wilhelmine or Wilhelmina? Rayleen, Wilhelmine. Moses, Wilhelmine. Rayleen, do you remember her? Moses, yeah. 5th grade? Rayleen, no. She was our 3rd grade teacher, and she was very young when she was our teacher. I remember she was very, very young. Later in the years, I talked to Angie, Barbara's mom, and she said she got to see her when she went to visit Jerry, and she said, you know, she's not a nun anymore. She married, and her husband would go over to visit Jerry and his wife, Angie. Moses, yeah, I did have her for a teacher. I thought it was more like 5th grade, but there was Sister Mary Alfred. Which grade was that? 7th grade? Rayleen, no, I remember her. She was 4th or 5th grade teacher. She was real tall, huh? Moses, yes, Sister Alfred was. Rayleen, she was very tall. Moses, Sister Frances Agnes, that's another one I'm blanking on her name right now, but those were the days when Holy Cross was taught by nuns, with the rare exception of a Mrs. Chase or a Mr. Stubinger. Rayleen, well, he only came because that nun that we had that year got hit with a baseball bat. Do you remember? She got hit with a baseball bat, so we had to replace her, and that's when Mr. Stubinger came. He was a real tall and really mean. Moses, yes, he was. He walked the aisles with a book. Rayleen, and hit them on the head. Moses, I remember we'd just be sitting there as still as could be, you know. And then he came up behind me and smacked me, and I went like this, showing that he almost fell over. And I came back. Of course, I didn't say a word, and I just got back, and he said, that's for all the times you got away with it. I probably did get away with stuff, but that was really uncalled for. Rayleen, but the book was thick. Moses, yeah. Rayleen, the book was a big dictionary, I remember. Moses, he got me good. Rayleen, yes, he was mostly after the boys. He didn't do anything to the girls, but he was always after the boys. Moses, yep. Rayleen, you know, Holy Cross now, it has no nuns. Moses, there are no nuns? Rayleen, no nuns. Moses, I imagine that's because young women are not joining the nunnery. Is that a proper word? Rayleen, we had a nun that was a principal last year. Her name was Sister Rachel, and now she's up at Villanova teaching. But as for the school, they have no nuns. They're all young teachers. The principal is probably all of 30 years old. Moses, I guess it's a crisis within the Catholic Church. When we were young and we were going there, it seemed like all the priests were Irish guys, and occasionally a Mexican priest would come through. I think it was a generational thing that when the Irish came to this country, a lot of them ended up as policemen. Like in the East Coast, a lot of the immigrants just joined the priesthood, anything to become part of the mainstream. But once those kinds of migrations are not as high, like there was a lot of Irish coming, it changes. Now it seems the majority of priests are coming out of Latin America and Mexico, so it's just a different time. I guess it's a kind of hard life to commit to be a nun or a priest. Punky. Rayleen, you went to Holy Cross. Your brother and sister went to Holy Cross. Rayleen, my mother went to Holy Cross. Punky, so you're talking about generations. Your mother, your brother and sister, you, your daughters, Rayleen, and now my granddaughter. Punky, that's 5 generations. Rayleen, yeah. My grandchildren have all gone to Holy Cross. I have 2 boys at Holy Cross right now.